Hey guys, it is April from Getting Huggo With It. So I went to the fair with my list of 100 books that I wanted to find, and that fair was mania on the first day. I could barely squeeze through. Everyone was kind of brushing up against each other. It was really crazy. I went the second day as well, and that day was a lot better. So in total, I was only able to find 9 books from the 100 list that I wanted. And then I bought 9 more books because, they weren't on the list, but they were all exciting books. So I hope that you like this. If you do, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I would love to spend more time with you. So let's get into the haul. We're going to start with the books that were on my list that I found. And so the first one was Sing Unburied, Sing by Jesmyn Ward. I was so excited that I was able to find this. I think I paid $3 for this one. And this is about a young boy named Jojo, and his father is in jail. His mother is a drug user, and it's about him trying to go through his life. I've heard wonderful things and lots of buzz about this one on BookTube, so I'm so happy to have this on my shelves now. I was also able to find Fierce Kingdom by Gin Phillips. It's about a woman who takes her little child to the zoo, and then a gunman comes into the zoo, and it's basically a flight for survival. And the premise is like, what would you do to save your child? And I would say anything if it was me. So I'm a little bit nervous and on edge to read this, but it's supposed to be good. I was also able to pick up The Dollhouse by Fiona Davis. I've never read Fiona Davis before, which is shocking. This kind of interweaves 2 timelines. I think there's present day and then 1950s. And in present day, we're following a journalist named Rose, and in the apartment building that she lives in, there is a woman there named Darby. And Darby is rumored to have been involved in a deadly skirmish with a hotel maid, and everyone is talking about it in this building. And so she goes and interviews Darby, and we find out about Darby's past in New York, and I would love to know what that deadly skirmish was. I also picked up The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. I've already read this, but I really enjoyed this book, and I wanted to have it on my shelves. And now I think I have all of Kate Morton's books on my shelves, which is perfect. Kate Morton always does that, flashing back and forth from present to past. We follow Laurel and her sisters, who are celebrating their mother's 90th birthday, and they start to uncover what happened to Dolores in her youth. When Laurel and her sisters were young, Laurel was witness to a shocking crime between her mother and someone else, and it kind of dives into what happened there. I really liked this, and I'm so happy to have this on my shelves. I actually bought this before at a Value Village, and I picked it up and brought it home, and when I got home I was like, why does it smell like smoke? And the book was like, it was tinged yellow with smoke. It was so disgusting. I had to throw it out. And I've never thrown out a book before, but no one should read books like that. So yes, thank goodness I was able to find this in really great condition, white. It's looking good. So yes, The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. I also was able to get The Concubine's Daughter by Pai Kit Fai. This is about a young concubine in China who gives birth to a daughter who is stunning, and everyone just assumes that she will also become a concubine. But this little girl decides she wants an entirely different fate. She refuses to have her feet bound. She doesn't follow her father's orders, and she actually escapes the silk farm with an English sea captain. So this is her story, and it sounds wonderful, and it says on the cover, a riveting saga of early 20th century China in the tradition of memoirs of a geisha. The next book I was able to get is The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. Now I picked this up because my mom recommended it to me. She actually watched the movie and regretted not reading the book first. And so this is about two storylines, I believe. We follow 14-year-old Alma. Her mom is incredibly lonely, and her mom is translating this book. And Alma, this teenager, is trying to figure out like how to get her mom out of this rut. And she decides to go on the hunt to find the author of this book. And the author of the book, it lives in New York. And his name is Leo Gursky, and he's just trying to survive a little longer. He spent his days dreaming about a lost love in Poland 60 years ago who inspired him to write the book. It sounds wonderful. It's also interestingly laid out. So I like it when authors kind of play with how a book is physically written. I also picked up Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCreight. This is going to be a heavy one for me, and I don't think I'm going to be ready to read this anytime soon, because this follows the story of this suburb where, you know, nothing bad ever happens in a suburb, and yet the body of a newborn baby is found dead in the woods near the suburb. And we follow a freelance journalist who's trying to get to the bottom of it. She herself lost her own child, and so I think she's dealing with her own grief, and this brings up all sorts of stuff for her. It sounds great and really emotional. I knew that I did want to read this at some point. I just don't think it will be this year, if I'm being perfectly honest. I also picked up Emma and the Night by Wendy Walker. This is the story of two sisters. One is 15, one is 17, and one night they go missing, and they're missing for years and years and years, like 3 years. And one of them shows up at their parents' doorstep again, and they're all excited, and yet they're trying to understand what happened to her, where is her sister, and there seems to be some holes in her story, and so the parents and also the police are trying to get to the bottom of what in the world happened. It sounds amazing. It sounds like such a fun thriller, so I'm really happy I found this one. And last but not least, I was able to pick up The Baker's Secret by Stephen P. Kiernan. This is set in France, and we follow our main character, who is a baker, and she has a very quiet, happy life in this French little town until the Nazis arrive, and she starts to use her bakery as a way to kind of fight the Nazis. She's able to make deliveries to people, and so she can kind of deliver messages. I think that's the concept of this. It sounds a little bit reminiscent of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, so I'm very happy to have that one. Those are all of the books that I got that were on my list, that list of 100. That was it. Now we're going to move into the books that I picked up kind of on a whim, although some of them I had wanted to read and were on my radar. So the first is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbary, and this takes place in a hotel, I believe. And we follow two people. We follow Renee. She's the building's concierge, and she's kind of just curmudgeon-y. To the outside world, that's kind of her role, and yet she has this secret, which is that she adores art. And then we also follow Paloma, who's 12 years old. She has decided that when she turns 13, she's going to end her own life. Somehow these stories are going to interweave, and I think it sounds amazing. I also picked up The Truth According to Us by Annie Barrows. Now, Annie Barrows was the co-author of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. And I really enjoyed that book. And so I really didn't know what else Annie Barrows had written. I thought she only wrote middle grade. But no, she also wrote this book, and this takes place in 1938. We follow Lila Beck, who moves to Macedonia, West Virginia with her dad because her dad is assigned a story. He's meant to cover the history of this town, and she kind of reluctantly goes, and she meets some interesting characters there, and they all also uncover this history of this town. It sounds really, really interesting, and I'm just so excited that I found another Annie Barrows novel. I also picked up The Girls by Emma Cline. I've already read this and loved it. This is a brutal kind of retelling of the Manson murders. And we follow one character who was involved in his clique. What I loved about this book was how it physically made you feel. There were periods in this book where I felt sticky because of the writing. It was so vivid. I really, really loved that. This is very much a love it or hate it book. A lot of people read this and just don't like it at all, but it had such a visceral feeling to it that I thought it was brilliant writing, and I'll read anything that Emma Cline writes. I also picked up Vanessa and Her Sister by Priya Parmar. Now, I had been trying to look for Exit the Actress by Priya Parmar because Candace over at Beacon Hill Books really loves Priya Parmar. So when I saw this, I grabbed it immediately, and this takes place in 1905 in London. We follow two sisters, Vanessa, who is a painter, and Virginia, who is a writer. When Vanessa falls in love, Virginia feels really abandoned, and it's about their relationship, that relationship between the sisters. So I'm excited to see what all the buzz is about. This is also told mostly in letters and also in like postcards and telegrams, and it just sounds great. I also got A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This looks fantastic. I know that it's had a lot of buzz in the world in this last couple of years, but oh my gosh, it sounds great. This takes place on a remote island in the Pacific Northwest, and a Hello Kitty lunchbox washes up on the beach. Inside this lunchbox is the diary of a 16-year-old Japanese girl named Nao Yasutani. And then a writer named Ruth finds this lunchbox and believes that it is part of the debris from the Japanese tsunami. And she starts to read the diary, and we dive into Nao's story. And I can't tell you how wonderful this sounds. I've seen it before, but I've never read the back of this book, and I can't wait to read this. I also picked up The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. This is a tiny, tiny little book, less than 200 pages. And in this book, we are following a math professor who had a head injury, and his head injury has led him to only have the memory of an 8-minute period. So I think it was his short-term memory that was affected. And then we also follow his housekeeper. And so every day they meet each other for the first time, basically. And every day they have to, the housekeeper has to introduce herself. And it's about their relationship. It sounds absolutely wonderful. I was so excited that I found this. I did not expect to find like such an obscure kind of book at this sale, but someone has very good taste in books and wanted to get rid of this, had read it, gotten everything they needed out of it, and now it's on to me. I also picked up The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I've heard about this book so many times, and I think this is kind of a cult kind of book in which our main character goes to this library, and she has adopted siblings, and they've all been raised according to father's ancient customs. They've studied the books in his library and learned some of the secrets of his power. And sometimes they've wondered if their cruel tutor might secretly be God. Now, Father is missing, perhaps even dead, and his library stands unguarded. This sounds really twisted and very much like some sort of cult kind of book. Sounds great. I'm going to pick this up. This seems like a really good book to read. Maybe in the late summer, early fall. So yeah, that's The Library of Mount Char. This one was totally random. I picked up The Supreme Macaroni Company by Adriana Trigiani. And this is another one by the author of The Shoemaker's Wife. I think I'm just attracted to all of her covers. This is like shiny and pretty. This is about a shoe company in Greenwich Village. This is a love story between two people. However, a piece of surprising news is revealed on a fateful Christmas Eve when Valentine and Gianluca join her extended family. I don't know what happens, but I do like the concept of reading this during Christmas time. This is like an unlikely Christmas story just because of the cover. I don't know why, but the cover doesn't scream Christmas to me. But I could definitely see myself hunkering down and reading this in December sometime. So yeah, totally got it on a whim. We'll see. And the last book that I picked up is A Piece of the World by Christina Baker Klein. I absolutely loved Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein. It was so good to me. It got me out of a reading slump. I really liked it. In this story, we follow Christina Olsen, and she lives on a remote farm in Maine. She lives a really regular kind of normal life until an artist shows up named Andrew Wyeth, and she becomes the subject of one of his best-known paintings of the 20th century, and it's called Christina's World. And in this, Christina Baker Klein is kind of reimagining what that story behind the painting is. Sounds great. So those are all the books I got. I honestly did want to get more, but I didn't find, I'm not going to just randomly buy books. I mean, I did randomly buy some of these, but none of the other ones really spoke to me, so that was it. I was so surprised that I didn't find any Amy Tan. I was surprised I didn't find like Brave New World. There were a lot of books on my list that seemed like sure things. And then a lot of books that I got that I thought I was surprised were even there. So overall, I'm definitely going to go to that book fair again. I'll even go again on the first day, even though it was madness. I got the bulk of these books on the first day, so I'll do it again. And next time I'll try to vlog it, but it was almost impossible. Let me know, do you guys have any book fairs that you look forward to every single year? And let me know what it is. It would be a great way to kind of get to know like where you're from. So make sure to leave that in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!